So this tree here is going to be a major project. I want to save this tree. We're not going to cut it for lumber. I'm going to take a lot of branches off of this, and this is where the chainsaw and the ladder is going to get a little dangerous, but I think we'll be okay. But this one's going to take a lot of work. I want to clear up some of this parasitic vine stuff. Some of that shit is going to go. And this one, though, is going to take a lot of work, but once it's done, it'll be a good little centerpiece for this little area. Probably cosmetic, just to make the area more inviting for people that want to live here. But we've got good scenery, like that scene right there. I think that's pretty slick. And we're just going to make it where all this underbrush crap is out of the way. It's not going to have a lot of greenery branches dragging on the ground where they can catch disease. And of course, this tree would be very, very vulnerable to fire with a number of dead, smaller branches sticking off of that. So we're going to be cutting a lot of this lower stuff out so that the tree is no longer vulnerable to fire. So in trimming this back, because these branches that I'm taking off these are destined more for firewood than a chipper. I mean, if they've got enough diameter to them that, you know, they'll do okay in a fireplace. They're destined for the firewood pile and not the chipper. One thing to be careful about on firewood pile stuff with salvaging deadfall is a lot of it's already got some bugs processing it. This would be firewood for campfires, but not for a fireplace in a building. Too many bugs. And if you bring that into the building, you're introducing the bugs to a building. So a lot of this, and that's part of prepping an area for survival camping, is we just drop the firewood near the tree. You know, little piles. If somebody needs the firewood, it's there. Hopefully they're going to be safe and conscientious about where they would have a fire and what season. And at that is where we look into clearing a decent diameter area so that they're not near sagebrush, or maybe even put in some 55-gallon drum fire pits for safety. You know, something with a covered top or one of those clay outdoor fireplace deals, because we don't really want open fire in the wrong season. But during some seasons, obviously that's okay. So little piles of firewood at the base of each tree is part of prepping an area for future part-time residents, okay? The other thing to look out for, and why, especially for an amateur woods care type thing, the Sawzall is so much of a better choice. And you've seen my other videos regarding the solar power stations that we can use for this. It's less noise, it's not going to attract a lot of attention, there's no spark hazard from the machine, which spark hazards around here obviously can become an issue. There's issues with kickback on chainsaws, and you know, most of what we're cutting, we get just plain firewood or shelter wood out of something like this. Is a situation like this. I had a deadfall tree pinning down a branch. You can see this branch right here, and it was live. You get that rich color because it was live. It was being pinned down here, and I saw that, okay, but that's that's a good 3 feet of movement, and a person with a chainsaw, if they didn't have the experience in knowing that this was probably pinning a branch down under tension, it was live because that's all part of that branch. As soon as that last bit lets go, this goes springing up. That's a part that could not just whack you in the face, but could drive a running chainsaw into your face, okay? And part of the added safety of using a Sawzall, especially an electric Sawzall, instead of a chainsaw, is that it's a little slower. The commercial guys don't like it because they feel they need to make more money faster off the workers, but they also have a lot of insurance to be concerned with, and they just don't give a fuck if you get hurt, and they'll laugh at you for not being careful. The thing is, by cutting with a Sawzall, having some experience to know that sometimes these branches are pinned under pressure means that I'm in less danger, obviously. But with something like that under tension, had about 3 feet of movement. If I were to spring that down and use that, I think I actually had more movement to where, yeah, it could really jump up and hurt somebody when you cut. So watch when these branches are actually, you know, they look like they've been pinned to the ground, but if it's been pinned to the ground by other deadfall, they can spring up and get you. So as you can see, I'm making progress. This is a little bit less than one battery's worth of cutting. I expect to change batteries before I'm done with this, but this here, that'll make a good little, I'm going to end up with a good little weekend's worth of firewood from the next camp out. And it's surplus. It's going to be here. I'll have it in a little pile safely away and get this cleaned up and keep making progress. So a little over one battery later, I got to go and recharge the batteries. That branch will come down next, and this one's definitely going to require climbing. I want to get up in there and get all that scraggly stuff off the inside, and that's going to involve some work, but it's relatively safe with the right ladders and sawzall instead of a chainsaw. Big deal on that. So we'll get up in there and get this thing kind of trimmed out, hollowed out, and it'll be good for life. I think after that, once it's done, that's going to be it, and it'll be a good healthy tree for the next 100 years. So here's one of the campsite areas. Kind of sort of, if you follow up a little bit, I'll splice this in with the other video that I was talking about prepping an area. So I've been out cutting these trees. I've got to get a pole saw to reach higher up into these. A lot of underbrush removal. It's a fair amount of work, but I'm doing it at my leisure. Okay, so we got this stuff here. We've got a lot on the ground over here where I've been working earlier. A small apple orchard that hasn't been tended in at least 10 years, maybe even longer. The place had been set up by other survivalists for Y2K, but I think they weren't taking it too seriously. Some of the construction they did was lackluster, so we're having to prep a few areas just for clean slate type stuff. But here you can see a lot of brush, a lot of underbrush, a fair amount of chainsaw and chipping work. I really don't want to do the pile and burn, but it depends a little bit on the weather and some other factors in the next year. It is possible just to drag all this out and have a giant bonfire once a year during the rainy season. And especially if it's combined with like a big party or something. So here you can see this area had been just really scrubby, really hard to walk through, really hard to maneuver. I'm trying to blaze a trail that could eventually be driven through, but I have to get all the trees limbed out going through there so that I can make some intelligent decisions on which trees may actually have to be removed in order to get the trail that I want to get. And because we had that really nice area with the lake that is, right now it's not vehicle accessible. But here you can see prepping an area is no joke. It's a lot of work, but it should be done ahead of time. It can be done ahead of time. And it's a lot of work, but it's part of getting things ready. And you can, even though this is on private property, it can be done on public land, especially if you're spending a few weekends or, a little, like a long weekend out at a place and you've got people. You can find some little out-of-the-way areas, especially if you're not using gas-powered tools. You're using electrics, which aren't very loud. Cleaning up an area and making it a better site in national park, national forest, state park type areas. And a lot of times the rangers really appreciate the work. You can clear it with them. I know some forestry management people that are actually really cool about that. And they may be actually very cool about you saying, hey, we're survivalists, we're kind of looking at a bug out location, we'd like to do some fire hazard abatement, and can you show us a good spot? And we'll do free work. We're going to do some fire hazard abatement. And they may even pitch in for some of the help, like you pile up the brush and they'll come by and chip it or haul it. They can do that. And so if you make friends with the forestry people, that may not be a bad thing. And it's good for public relations, and all you got to do is say, "Hey, listen, we're preppers. You've seen the National Geographic stuff. We're into that a little bit, but we're too poor to afford land, so we've got some campers, and we'd like to have a place that we can go to from time to time. And can we do some improvements here? And what do you think about us trimming these trees and clearing some underbrush?" And a lot of times they can be pretty supportive of that. So you'll see more and more progress as I cut more and trim more and haul crap out of here. So with this area prep done, this is what we're looking at, and then there's a lot of stuff going on here. So the next stage is trying to revive these apple trees. This is the old orchard that hasn't been maintained for probably 10 years. And so I'm not the world's best expert at trimming apple trees. What I do know is these have a lot of crap we just don't want to deal with. So I'm going to be trimming these and taking a lot of weight off of them. Hopefully it'll be workable. The trick with this is we want to take a lot off of these so you can walk around under them. But we got to top that, is what they call it, because this stuff that goes really high up we're never going to be able to harvest. So there's a way of guiding the growth by taking some of that straight up stuff off so you can actually harvest apples. And you can see that little area has been mostly cleared, although I want to get the pole saw and go a little higher with the clearing. We've got light getting to the ground level, and hopefully the light and water to ground level is going to benefit grass more than it benefits more of the weed type stuff. But that's where a little bit of ongoing maintenance would happen. And of course I got to get into that woods and clean all that out further through there. And it'll be a big project, but we're making it nicer.